What simple mistake has ended lives? I read an article a long time ago about an aircraft maintenance worker not removing a piece of tape that was put in place to protect a sensor during cleaning. The pilot failed to notice during the pre-flight inspection. More than 100 people died in the plane crash. Archduke Franz Ferdinand's driver making a wrong right turn down a side street. Leaving the stranded vehicle on the road in winter and trying to walk to get help. It happens in rural parts of our province once or twice a year, and they find the body a few days later. They get disoriented and freeze. Baby in the backseat. I'm in childcare and I'll do some insane things to remember there's a baby back there. Take my shoes off. Put my phone back there. Dirty diaper as a reminder. People forget. It doesn't matter if you're a mom, nanny, father, nurse, firefighter. It happens. And yet there's always someone who says, I'd never forget my baby. And every year babies die because of it. That all heart attacks have the exact same symptoms. They don't. Trust yourself and seek help ASAP if you are afraid that you're having a heart attack. Mixing cleaning ingredients. The Goiânia accident. Less than Kyle Hill video on the incident. A court in Brazil had been made aware that there was an unsecured source of radiation in a condemned cancer treatment clinic due to be torn down, but did not let anyone safely remove it. A scrap collector went into the building, found the radiation source, broke it open, and found glowing blue powder inside. No one knew it was extremely radioactive cesium powder, and the glowing blue light emitted by the powder was beautiful. It was spread around much of the local city before reports of widespread radiation sickness prompted government emergency action. Multiple people died of radiation poisoning, including one 6-year-old girl. As an additional butthole clencher, the fire department very nearly threw the bag holding the remaining powder into the local river. Not having a carbon monoxide detector. Mao's idea to get rid of sparrows. In short, China's great leader Mao had calculated that sparrows eat grain, and if China got rid of them, they would have more food. So they did indeed decimate the sparrow population. They did not consider that sparrows eat lots of insects as well, which started to thrive, including locusts. The locusts ate the grain. Famine. Between 16 and 30 million people died. When he recognized his mistake, he asked the Soviet Union for help, and they secretly shipped sparrows to China. This is a bit of a stretch though. Lots of factors led to the famine. Lots of mistakes were made. But of all of them, this was probably the most obviously stupid one. Long ago I was on the crew of a submarine older than me. We went into the shipyard. One of the planned jobs was to install some new equipment that required a hull penetration. One Friday afternoon a shipyard worker drilled a 1/8 inch pilot hole through the hull, intending to come back on Monday to finish the job. The job got cancelled. He got reassigned. And the hole remained. It was covered with duct tape to keep dirt out. The painters went ahead and sprayed over the tape. How deep can a piece of duct tape plus paint hold on a dive? About 218 feet. Before you ask. Yes, we survived. Not wearing a seatbelt. A friend's husband locked himself out of their home. He tried to get in through a window that had security bars. While squeezing through, his foot slipped and he essentially hung himself on the window sill. Pulling the knife out of someone. Near me there was a serious traffic collision. Several cars and 2 trucks. 3 people died when one truck plowed into stationary traffic at around 50 miles per hour. The crash and resulting fire was so horrific 2 people were only identified by their dead dog on the carriageway. It was microchipped. It was on the BBC News and have been documentaries about it. The truck driver was on his phone. He was charged and is now in prison. Respected cardiothoracic surgeon tells a guy to stop smoking right outside the hospital doors. Guy turns around and punches him a single time in the head. King hit. Or coward punched. Whatever you want to call it. He falls to the floor and hits his head a second time. On life support for 4 weeks. Nothing left to save. Always treat a gun like it's loaded. Not being honest with doctors about Viagra. It has many dangerous drug interactions and can cause a lot of problems from what I've heard. Trust me, the doctor ain't gonna judge you guys. They have seen much more embarrassing things. And it would suck to die because you wanted to hide something just for it to be later stated in your death certificate. I worked at a tire place for a summer and the first thing they told me was, "See that torque wrench? One mistake with this and you can kill a whole family in a matter of seconds." I thought, well, better take this thing seriously. Ignoring signs when cave diving. Bitch, they put a Grim Reaper on it. Turn around. Edit. Actually, cave diving to begin with. Fucking crazy people. Bunch of guys were working on a LNG line and when they cut over to the new line the pressure regulator sensors were still on the old, disconnected, line. So the system automatically started to boost the pressure up as it was sensing low pressure into the LNG lines while the sensors continues to be on a completely isolated system, causing multiple houses to basically explode due to unexpected high pressure in the system. All thanks to some idiot town council wanting to save money by not having the proper professionals work on the system. There have been too many instances of rock climbers rappelling off of the ends of their ropes, which could have been easily avoided by tying stopper knots at the ends of their ropes. There's a super famous example which got made into a film eventually I think called Open Water. But the original story was a yacht was found sailing adrift with a baby aboard and no crew anywhere to be seen. No signs of panic were found. The baby was dehydrated but otherwise fine. Eventually it was assumed that whilst at sea they went for a swim. The sides of yachts stick out of water quite high in place but on most boats the stern is lowered so you can climb into and out of the yacht from a tender, small dinghy. This yacht was different and had a ladder lowered from the back. This was either up or missing. But they couldn't get back on the boat and eventually drowned or were attacked by predators. Now I never jump in without thinking about this. Because you can't ever guarantee the person behind won't do the same. Imagine trying everything to get back to your screaming baby mere feet away and just being out of reach. It'd get dark. The wind might pick up and carry the boat away. Those final moment would be agony from such a simple mistake. Edit. I tried to look up the original news article and discovered it happens fairly frequently. Sometimes under different scenarios like this one. NASA executives overriding engineers on the launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger. The impact of a quick fix for motor vehicle engine knocking in 1921. The true death toll is too difficult to extrapolate. But it really did a number on humanity. It led to all kinds of problems, including increased crime rates due to neurological toxicity. A statistically significant correlation has been found between the usage rate of leaded gasoline and violent crime. The violent crime curve virtually tracks the lead exposure curve with a 22-year time lag. The Herald of Free Enterprise, not closing the bow door. 193 drowned. Friend was having a beer in a tavern. Some guys came in and started messing with my friend. He moved seats twice and then got up to leave when one of the guys threw a punch. My friend threw one punch back and the guy he hit landed in the ICU and wasn't expected to live. Friend was sitting in jail just waiting for the guy he punched to either die or recover. Turns out the guy he punched recovered. Friend took a reduced charge of aggravated assault. A felony. One punch. Some homeopathic medicine for babies still contained deadly amounts of belladonna. Some babies died. Apparently, they did not dilute it as extremely as they were supposed to in homeopathy. As a healthcare worker, giving the wrong amount of insulin. Basing test dummies on the proportions of the average man. Many women and children have died in car crashes because the seatbelt is up too high across their body or the airbag hits at the wrong angle because it was designed to expand to accommodate a taller person. Just wish someone figured out not everyone is the same size before people died. Edit. Cutting towards yourself, rather than away. Being on statins for high cholesterol plus amiodarone for cardiac issues and having a glass of grapefruit juice before going to bed. Smoking in bed. Former paramedic. Theric, 25. The world's deadliest software error. Cost several radiation patients their lives by administering lethal amounts of radiation. And for a while, the doctors didn't even know. Not using a fucking turn signal. Thank you for the award. Lol. Treat the ocean like it's just some water. Back when I was in middle school, we had a carbon monoxide leak on a state testing day. Someone was supposed to test for carbon monoxide over the weekend, but the guy showed up at the high school and not the middle school. And they ended up having to reschedule the whole thing. When they found out about the leak, everyone was in the middle of state testing and they didn't want to evacuate the classrooms. Plus it was raining. So they held a shelter in place and tried to handle the situation since it was in a room away from the classrooms. But then kids started passing out in the classrooms and vomiting and stuff. Several ambulances. 2 hours in the rain. And several school buses taking us all to stay in the elementary school building later. 3 students and 1 teacher's assistant died and over 30 students ended up in the hospital. My mom came and got me from the elementary school and took me to the hospital. I was okay. But I went home and passed out for almost 2 days. My mom was about ready to drag me back, but then I started to feel better. All around? Fucking crazy experience. Not checking and planning for the weather. Almost any simple mistake can end a life if you're an anesthesiologist. That's how my grandpa died in his early 60s. Not looking both ways when crossing a street. My neighbor let his 15-year-old drive on the interstate coming back from a Florida vacation because he was tired. He crossed the line, flipped the vehicle, and the entire family ultimately didn't make it. I once listened to a guy telling the story of how, when he fell down the stairs, he desperately clutched onto the glass of wine he was carrying, in order not to break it, instead of grabbing the railing to stop his fall. He survived with a broken hip. But I imagine lots of people probably have the same weird instinct and some may not be able to tell the tale. Shaking a vending machine. The Halifax explosion. December 1917. A ship with a hell of a lot of explosives ran into another ship that was traveling on the wrong side of the shipping lanes. An explosion the equivalent of 3 kts of TNT killed nearly 2,000 people. Caused a tsunami. And injured 9,000 people. Keeping in mind the recent Beirut explosion was close to 1 kt of TNT. Doing fentanyl once destroyed my life for 3-ish years. I was a complete shell and zombie. Almost died too. Overdosed 4 times. Lucky I got my shit together and will be 5 months sober in 2 days. People outdoors getting amazed when their hair stands up during a thunderstorm. P.S. It means you're about to die. Helmet. Not installing smoke detectors. Removing the weight from crush injuries after the 20 minutes has passed. Many people died due to poisoning. If they get the required injection, there's a far better chance of survival. Not washing hands between births. Graphite-tipped control rods and the Arizona 5. Nigerian Airlines Flight 2120, operated by Nationair, departed Jeddah. Saudi Arabia. After a maintenance worker reinflated a tire with air instead of nitrogen. The tire heated up, burst, and caught fire during the takeoff roll. The landing gear was retracted into the aircraft and burned the airfract from the inside out. The fire caused a mid-air structural failure shortly before the pilots could return to Jeddah. My father's first wife was a flight attendant on that flight. Her and 260 others died. It remains the most deadly aviation accident involving a Canadian airline. The guys who accidentally dropped the Demon Core. And X200B. It's also weird that it happened twice. Removed by Reddit. I was working alone and fell off a ladder beside an empty shaft where stairs used to be. I fell 20 feet off the ladder down the shaft. I caught myself on a railing that had been left behind and hit the floor below. I got off really lucky. I was bruised up and it took about 20 minutes till I could get up. If that railing wasn't there, I was probably dead because I would have fallen 2 more floors to the basement. Also saw a guy who also fell off a ladder. He was 3 steps up. Smashed his head and got perma brain damage. In 1854, a woman named Sarah Lewis threw a diaper from her dying baby into a London cesspool, resulting in cholera, killing 616 people after it contaminated a popular well. Oily paint, staining rags will combust. Per the internets, spontaneous combustion of oily rags occurs when rag or cloth is slowly heated to its ignition point through oxidation. A substance will begin to release heat as it oxidizes. If this heat has no way to escape, like in a pile The temperature will rise to a level high enough to ignite the oil and ignite the rag or cloth. My dad worked in construction and this had happened on job sites a time or two. Blood transfusions not being screened for various diseases but now is. Drinking and driving. Grenfell Tower. Kensington and Chelsea Borough Council saved £5. $6.000 by not installing the slightly more expensive fireproof cladding, and instead used Riddiman PE which, as described by one report, acted like solid petrol in the fire. This caused 72 deaths and hundreds to suffer from homelessness, mental health problems and trauma. Turning on a gas stove without checking that the pilot light is lit. Stupidity. I worked at a place that had nightly cruises on the river on weekends. Basically a bar on a boat. A guy got way too drunk before the boat took off. AMD they kicked him off. He tried to jump on the boat as it took off. The current took him under and he drowned. Taking a selfie. A neighborhood kid I grew up with got his Honda all tricked out. He had an aftermarket remote start on it. Back when those were rather new. Apparently the remote start activated while everyone was asleep. I guess the theory was he left the keys in his pants when he fell asleep. Car was in the garage. Entire household, parents, brother, sister, and Isaac all died. Getting fired up from road rage. The most common cause of quadriplegia is diving into water without checking the depth of the water. Always check the water depth before you jump. Putting a blanket, toy in a crib with a sleeping infant. Misunderstanding what a vaccine is, and thus refusing it, and preventing others from having it. I feel like this is as good as any place to advertise "Well, there's your problem." A podcast about engineering disasters and social murder. With slides. Eating rhubarb leaves as part of a salad. It's pretty rare, but it has happened when someone hasn't known what they were cooking with. Rhubarb leaves contain a lot of oxalic acid which is poisonous in large doses. Drinking while taking medications. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. If you would like to see more content like this in the future, subscribe and turn on notifications to be notified about future videos. Now check out one of these interesting videos.